This season just blows. At least the first half does, anyway. But anyway, we're at the halfway point, and everyone but Justin has been replaced. In fact, Bulk and Skull are the only characters now who have been here since the beginning. And they're invisible! Well, for only one episode, anyway. Surprisingly, Lieutenant Stone is happy to see them again once they become visible. The new team must have also gotten a full briefing on Power Rangers-related history and knowledge, since they treat the Blue Centurion as if they've been with him for as long as the original team. Or maybe just more time has passed than we're shown, since they act like good friends despite the fact that TJ and Cassie are from out of town and never met Carlos and Ashley. In fact, why the hell is Cassie around them? She was on her way to Stone Canyon, the neighboring city, not Angel Grove. The next advancement in the Rangers' arsenal comes in the Wheel of Fate, wherein Divatox finds a map to the locations of Lightning Cruiser and Storm Blaster.
Only the two most powerful vehicles in the universe!
Yes, the most powerful vehicles in the universe look exactly like cars from Earth. Okay. Oh, what's even better? The cars are alive, kinda like superhero versions of Herbie the Love Bug. Admittedly, it's fun watching Divatox's forces get their asses kicked by cars, but only because it further demonstrates how pathetic they are. Oh, Lightning Cruiser can also fly, which will make some things a bit silly when we get to certain parts of the show. The two cars are kinda like mini Zords, able to help out on the ground, but are rather independent. One wonders who would design vehicles with artificial intelligence who get to decide who they want to drive them, but what you gonna do? Cars do everything in this season. So after a filler episode where they get baked into a giant pizza... Excuse me a moment. The story continues in The Phantom Phenomenon. A ship crashes on Earth containing an invisible pilot, the Phantom Ranger. He foils an attempt by Divatox to rob a bank, and yes, Divatox tries to rob a bank, because as a space pirate, American paper money is so valuable on the intergalactic market. Demetria determines that his power is derived from Eltar, Zordon's homeworld. However, she makes it clear that if he is from Eltar, he'll only reveal his purpose when he wants to. The Phantom Ranger was originally a one-shot character from Car Ranger, but the producers decided to use him as a recurring character, kind of putting him in the 6th Ranger spot. We sadly never find out very much about him, though they did plan to reveal his origins in the next season. Budget restrictions sadly kept those episodes from being made. Despite the two never really knowing anything about the other, there was kind of a romance being developed between him and Cassie. The story continued with the arrival of Divatox's brother, General Havoc. He brings with him a space base that Divatox had originally asked him to construct 100 years ago. Divatox takes her ship up into orbit and docks with the space base. Havoc also reveals a giant Zord called Metallosaurus that he can use to fight the Rangers. Metallosaurus is okay, but it lacks the menace and sleekness of Serpentera, not to mention the size, though I suppose the fact that it can work for longer than 5 minutes is a plus. After Metallosaurus disables the Turbo Megazord, his robot troops invade it and eject the Rangers from it. He steals the Turbo Megazord and brings it back to the space base. With the Megazord in his control, General Havoc reverse engineers some of its technology to upgrade Metallosaurus, and also develops a ray gun for Divatox. In the Megazord's databanks, they also discover information on the Phantom Ranger, particularly that the source of his power is a ruby on his chest. Havoc launches another attack, and the Rangers try to fight it with Lightning Cruiser and Storm Blaster, however they get shot down. The Phantom Ranger arrives and leads them through tunnels under the city towards an unknown destination. The Rangers arrive back on the scene with a new set of Zords, the Rescue Zords. I'm not sure just how long these things were sitting under the city, though. They manage to destroy the Metallosaurus, but Havoc immediately gets to work on a new one. Havoc kidnaps Cassie in an attempt to get his hands on the Phantom Ranger, but Justin and Alpha track him down. However, it turns out to be a pretty clever trap to kidnap the Phantom Ranger. Cassie manages to escape as Metallosaurus 2 is unleashed on the Rangers. They save the Phantom Ranger and form the Rescue Megazord, destroying Metallosaurus 2. In the wake of this defeat, Havoc leaves, swearing to return with a new Metallosaurus even stronger than the last one. I'll talk a bit more about General Havoc when we get to the themes. Anyway, the Phantom Ranger is dying without his power ruby, but the Rangers are unable to locate Divatox's space base. The Rangers hit upon the idea of using a super powerful magnet to attract Divatox's space base closer to Earth. Divatox, in the meantime, installs the power ruby into the Turbo Megazord so she can use it against the Rangers. Divatox is able to disable the beam with a monster and launches the Turbo Megazord against them. The two Megazords fighting is actually a pretty intense battle and lasts for almost a full episode. TJ uses the Lightning Cruiser to leap into the Turbo Megazord and fight off the pilots, and manages to get down to the Ruby, restoring the Turbo Megazord to the Rangers' control. With the Ruby back in the Phantom Ranger, he's restored to life and departs, never to be seen in Turbo again. The season comes to a close in Chase into Space, a two-parter that I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, the filler episodes after the Phantom Ranger arc were actually much improved over what had come before. Divatox was still annoying as all hell, but it did really cement in my mind that this group was the Power Rangers. There was a mini-arc about Divatox trying to make her own set of Zords, but it didn't really go anywhere save for an absolutely awesome penultimate episode called Parts and Parcel that was about Bulk and Skull, which I'll discuss when we get to them. My mixed feelings are about how, well, utterly depressing it feels. Justin's dad has offered the opportunity for a new job, but it would mean moving out of Angel Grove. Justin's dad has been having weird job issues the entire season, most of the stuff revolving around how it keeps him from spending time with his son. The problem, of course, is that it would mean taking Justin away from the town and, like peace conferences before it, away from his ranger duties. At the same time, the space shuttle returns to Earth from the Power Rangers equivalent of NASA called NASADA. I have no idea why they needed their own NASA analog. Maybe NASA licensing fees are a bitch. The Rangers are called into the power chamber when there's an urgent distress call from a Zordon on Eltar. Eltar is under attack by evil forces, and Zordon asks the Rangers not to come to his aid, since it would leave the Earth undefended. The transmission cuts out before they can ask questions, but the Rangers are understandably concerned, especially since Justin says that Eltar is the source of their powers. Divatox summons a monster from the farthest reaches of the universe, one actually a bit larger than a Megazord. The Rangers summon the rescue Megazord, and in a startling display of competence, goes straight for the finishing move. However, the monster simply absorbs the energy and sends it right back at the Rangers. The monster just cripples the rescue Megazord, wailing on it over and over. With things desperate and the Megazord almost dead, TJ suggests they get in close and activate the self-destruct in the Megazord. Admittedly, this seems rather dumb to be honest, but I think it is kind of understandable why they all agree to do it. The fact that the battle is going so badly is one thing, but also I imagine they're still all stunned and worried about Zordon, and so they're not thinking straight. It's made no better by just how much they're getting their asses kicked by the monster. The Megazord grabs the monster and they evacuate the rescue Megazord, teleporting into the Turbozords. However, the monster is still unharmed. Damn. They use the Turbo Megazord against it, but it survives the attack. It trashes the Turbo Megazord, and TJ rides Lightning Cruiser in close enough to launch the Rangers' combined weapons right into the monster's throat, annihilating it. They're victorious, but they've lost not only both Megazords, but their power weapons as well, so it's a bittersweet victory. They teleport back to the power chamber, but Elgar and Rygog follow them and learn the location of the power chamber. Wait, Rita and Zed and the Machine Empire always knew where the command center was, so why the hell did Divatox have a problem finding it before? Anyway, now that she has the location of the power chamber, Divatox assembles an army of Piranhatrons to storm the power chamber. Demetria reports to the Rangers that Eltar has fallen. The Rangers want to go help, but she refuses, saying they need to stay and defend the Earth from Divatox. Instead, Demetria and the Blue Centurion will go to try to discover the fate of Zordon and save Eltar. However, their departure couldn't have happened at a worse time, since Divatox launches her attack. The Rangers see the approaching Piranhatrons and prepare to go out and face them. And here's where we really get my mixed feeling about this. Quite frankly, the Piranhatrons are pathetic. They have routinely gotten their asses kicked by the Rangers, including an unmorphed 12-year-old, and hell, I think even Bulk and Skull managed to ward off a few of them on occasion. I'll get into my feelings about Divatox in a bit, but to put it simply, she's a terrible villain. She comes off as Rita Light most of the time. Every time she talked about taking over the world, I just looked at her like you might look at someone who just said their wallet tastes good. She's a pirate, not a conqueror. It's like a petty thief laughing about how they'll become the greatest crime boss in history. It's overstepping their abilities or wants. A pirate doesn't go around wanting world domination. She goes around wanting to steal stuff. But yeah, the ridiculousness of it being her forces that ultimately defeat the Rangers like this is just off-putting. Anyway, during the fight, Lightning Cruiser and Stormblaster arrive to assist, but sadly they're both captured. It's a pity Lightning Cruiser didn't come in while flying so it could avoid the nets. One also wonders why they don't just keep their distance and just keep firing their lasers, or try running over the Piranhatrons. The Rangers retreat back into the power chamber, unable to take on so many of them at once. They shut the doors, but this really just raises the question of how the hell Divatox's forces could ever get in anyway. It was established long ago that the only way into the command center was with a power coin. Sure, the coins are gone now, but I imagine Zordon would have installed similar security precautions to protect them. Hell, the only reason Rito and Goldar got in was by going in under it. Anyway, the shields of the chamber fall and the Piranhatrons get battering ramps to storm the doors, as well as climbing the walls to burst down from the ceiling. This is just really depressing. As much as I hate to say it, this is a really well-written episode of the show, full of tension and dread about the Rangers' fate, made no better by the fact that the power chamber is just trashed. Alpha thinks he has enough power to teleport the Rangers out, but TJ swears to stay with him and defend the chamber to the bitter end. The Rangers do their best to defend Alpha as the Piranhatrons storm in, since Alpha 6 has the same fighting prowess as his predecessor. To make matters worse, it's Elgar who's leading the charge. Elgar, who I hate even more than Divatox, who comes in, sees the plasma tube for Dimitri and Zordon, and shatters it so that there's no hope of them returning. He plants explosives all over the power chamber and Divatox detonates them, leveling the power chamber completely. Divatox's forces scour the rubble, searching for the Rangers' bodies. Before the hiding Power Rangers can be found, a glowing head appears to Divatox, reporting that Zordon has been captured and that she's being called away. She refuses, since she's about to take over Earth, but the head tells her that the summons is made by someone called Dark Spectre. Divatox, frightened by this, immediately recalls her troops and sets out for a place called the Sumerian Planet to meet with the United Alliance of Evil. The Rangers emerge with Alpha and their powers vanish as a result of Eltar's capture. They decide that they have to go after Divatox to rescue Zordon and stop her from returning. Alpha recovers the black box of the power chamber since it contains all the information they'll need when they get there. They head over to Nasada. So that's the significance of that plot point. And Justin manages to convince the lead scientist that the Power Rangers need to use their new shuttle. The Rangers head off sans Justin, who decides that he needs to stay with his father. The season ends with the Rangers blasting off in the words, "To be continued next season, Power Rangers in space." Divatox? Well, she bugs me. I think it's from the fact that she did defeat the Rangers so thoroughly. Bear in mind that Lord Zed and Rita spent 3 years trying to defeat the Rangers and would have likely succeeded if not for the Zeo Crystal. The Machine Empire, an entire empire with an army, couldn't defeat the Zeo Rangers. And yet a whiny, petulant, greedy pirate bopping around in a stupid-looking submarine in her hideous car with her army of community theater putties is somehow able to finally do it? It's an embarrassment on the Rangers' record, even if the destruction of the power chamber was chilling. Frankly, what should have happened was that when General Havoc was introduced, he should have taken over as the primary villain. He was smarter than Divatox and far more effective, being the one responsible for stealing the Turbo Megazord and the Phantom Rangers' Power Ruby. Plus, instead of the more petulant Divatox, he was more calculating and cold, and when failure came, he didn't whine and scream at everything around him. I've now sat through 250 episodes of Power Rangers, and unless I watch the older episodes, knowing that I'll never see the Command Center or the Power Chamber again is off-putting. If there's a theme present in this season, it's sure as hell not obvious. Like I said, this should have been the graduation of the Rangers into more serious situations, but instead we had just a weird time. Bear in mind, the first 4 seasons, in my opinion, had the overall theme of magic versus technology, but this season? It's cars versus a space pirate in a submarine, and later a giant rubber band ball. I don't get it. The Cars theme just really seemed like a step in the wrong direction, making it feel like they were trying to appeal to the more extreme crowd, a crowd that preferred fast and cool-looking cars. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against those kind of things, but when I think of a legendary force of superheroes trying to save the planet, my thoughts do not turn to NASCAR. It's especially jarring when you consider that Power Rangers has always been one to preach its environmental message, yet now we're using friggin' cars to save the world. The Bulk and Skull as Chimps subplot wasn't bad in theory. The problem is that it's so easily solvable, even they could do it. Get Lieutenant Stone or one of the Rangers, grab a pen or marker, and write down, "We're Bulk and Skull, help us." Instead, they just keep expecting people to recognize them even though they're friggin' monkeys and no one can understand them. What makes this all the more annoying is that no one seems to care or wonder where the hell Bulk and Skull are, especially since they weren't at graduation. What about their parents? We established before that their parents do care about them, so why aren't they around to ask where their kids are? Fortunately, the producers wisely decided to not keep them invisible, so we had one humorous romp with it for one episode and then let them get back to being them. When they do return from being invisible, the only development actually goes to Lieutenant Stone, who expresses his joy that the two are back. I admit I still don't know why he's happy that they're back given their past, but at the same time, it really goes to show that their relationship was a bit more complicated than simply being annoyed by the two. However, there is virtually no development for the two during the season. The chimpanzee plot takes up all their time while the original Rangers are around, and once they return, they act as if nothing has changed, treating the new team no differently than they would the original. They've never met TJ or Cassie, yet act as if they've always been around them. It's a huge betrayal of the development of the characters, who are actually called friends on more than one occasion by the original team. Who are Bulk and Skull to the new group anyway? Why not explore that angle a bit instead of what we do get, which is the two constantly trying to find jobs and failing at them, usually because of a monster or their own incompetence. What's weird, though, is that the shift with the jobs sometimes has them back on the force, sometimes back in the detective office, and other times just meandering around. It's like the writers had no idea what to do with them. However, one positive episode that definitely deserves merit is Parts and Parcel, the episode right before Chase into Space. Bulk and Skull are doing package delivery as their latest job, but the contents of the packages keep getting stolen. Their supervisor suspects that they're responsible, but TJ, overhearing them, knows that they may be bumblers, but they're certainly not thieves. Well, at least not in this season. But hey, TJ wasn't around in Season 1. Point is, TJ decides to help them catch the thief. Eventually, the other Rangers get involved too, coordinating with Bulk and Skull in their efforts and being nice to each other and stuff. At the end, the Rangers even save them from being arrested, and Bulk comments that TJ's pretty cool. Cassie tells Bulk that TJ actually said the same about them. Sure, it wasn't from Tommy and the original cast, but it was a pretty awesome moment, worthy of the development the characters have had throughout 5 years. In a season of mistakes, missteps, and meandering about, there were a few gems here and there. The improved quality of the stories, being baked into a giant pizza notwithstanding, with the cast changeover helped improve the ratings enough to warrant what was going to be a final season. Since it was in all likelihood that the show would be over at this point, the show staff decided, screw it, let's do the things we always wanted to do but never could. And we'll discuss all that next time when we set controls to outer space.
Red light now. The evil pizzas were no match for a simple stoplight.